After long negotiations, a somewhat surprising announcement today. There is a bipartisan agreement on a commission to investigate the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The chairman and ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, Democrat Benny Thompson, and Republican John Katko introduced a bill that would establish a 10-person commission to investigate the, quote, domestic terrorist attack upon the United States Capitol, as well as the influencing factors that fomented such an attack on American representative democracy. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi says the bipartisan bill will be on the House floor as early as next week, even though Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says he has not signed off on it. And multiple members of the Republican caucus keep, well, denying the attack even happened.
My constituents demand answers, but the truth is being censored and covered up. As a result, the DOJ is harassing peaceful patriots across the country.
It was Trump supporters who lost their lives that day, not Trump supporters who were taking the lives of others.
Let me be clear. There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie.
Democratic Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island is now circulating a resolution to censure those Republican House members who continue to defend the attack on the Capitol, and he joins me now. Congressman, what would this resolution do?
Well, Chris, the truth matters. And when you have members of Congress who are repeating falsehoods, mischaracterizations about the violent and bloody insurrection that occurred on January 6th, it's very dangerous. It really emboldens others who might consider doing the same thing if it can be explained away. These things are seen, this sort of misinformation is all over the web. But we now have members of Congress in official proceedings making statements which completely mischaracterize these events and deny they happened. The January 6th deniers. And we cannot let that go unaccounted for. And so we have a responsibility to call it out, to condemn it, to acknowledge what really happened, which everyone saw with their own eyes. They don't have to listen to Republican lies. They saw it with their own eyes. It was a bloody attack on the Capitol where 5 people died. Significant damage was done to the building. Dozens more people were injured. They were there chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," hunting for members of Congress. And it's important that members of Congress not be allowed to completely rewrite history and just wish this away. And there has to be accountability for that. There has to be some action taken by the Congress of the United States to not permit members to engage in this kind of mischaracterization and spreading of lies about January 6th, which are very dangerous. The truth matters, particularly when it comes to defending our democracy and responding to a violent and bloody insurrection against the government of the United States.
I was a bit surprised about the announcement on the bipartisan commission today. Do you think there's actual momentum there?
Yes, I think it's very good news. Congratulations to Chairman Thompson and Ranking Member Katko for negotiating this. I think most fair-minded people think it's very important that we understand how this happened, all of the contributing circumstances, and that we ensure that we do everything in our power to be sure it never happens again, to protect the Capitol, the employees of the Capitol, members of Congress, and most importantly, to protect our democracy. So I think this is a really important step. And I think the American people deserve to know all of the facts and circumstances that led up to the violent attack on the Capitol of the United States that killed 5 people, including 1 police officer. And this commission will allow that to happen.
I want to play this clip of Liz Cheney talking to John Karl about what she thinks Kevin McCarthy should have to say to the commission. Take a listen.
Should Kevin McCarthy be willing to testify before that commission? After all, he is one of the few people that we know of that was actually talking to Donald Trump while the attack was taking place.
He absolutely should, and I wouldn't be surprised if he were subpoenaed. I think that he very clearly and said publicly that he's got information about the president's state of mind that day. The elements of that commission are exactly as they should be.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think the commission has to be empowered to gather up all of the evidence necessary to make findings and complete their report. And I think there's no question that Kevin McCarthy has information. I'll obviously leave it to the commission members to make that determination. But we presented that evidence during the impeachment trial, and Kevin McCarthy was pleading with former President Trump, asking him for help. And he first tried to say, oh, those were Antifa people. And Kevin McCarthy said, no, Mr. President, these are your people. And the former president said, well, maybe they just cared more about the election than you. So I think there's a lot Kevin McCarthy has to share with any fact finder.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.